Yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
And here we go, a live edition of Judd's Hockey Show. AJ Fredrickson, very excited. Trade deadline day. Now, full disclosure, we were going to wait till 1:45 Central to start this show because the trade deadline's at 2 o'clock. And we'll still go live at 1:45, but we've already had trades involving the Wild made this morning. And so we thought, you know what, let's go live immediately to talk about what we've seen, to see if anything breaks while we're doing this show, and then to circle back on by after 2 o'clock when we know what the pieces to the Wild puzzle will look like. Vincent Trocheck is still a Ranger. But, Age, we have two trades, and they are this. This morning, the first trade, Bobby Brink, Minnetonka's own, much like Sports Dad right here. I was around before him. I will say that. Bobby Brink from the Flyers, a winger, probably a third-line guy. We'll discuss and get your thoughts.
Okay.
David Jiricek gets sent to the Flyers. So this is making lemonade out of lemons, but we will talk about it. The Jiricek trade, in retrospect, is a complete disaster because you gave up draft picks. Not that you care about the F them picks, but those picks could have been used in trades, probably to sweeten the pot. The Wild gave up the farm to get a guy who looks just to be a bust. Now, he might develop, but you know what? He was the sixth pick in his draft. Columbus punted. Minnesota has punted. God bless the Flyers if they can get this guy who's got size to maximize his potential. That certainly looks like it's not going to happen. Trade number 2 comes in just a bit ago, and that is Nick Foligno, Marcus's brother, who the Wild tried to sign as a free agent. If you recall, he spent a long time in Columbus and was a really good player. Mm-hmm. He got traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs a few years back at the deadline to help with a run because the Maple Leafs are trying to capture their first Stanley Cup since 1967. Well, that went thud. And so he then was a free agent being pursued by, at the time, I think, Minnesota, Boston, and maybe one more team. He had a chance to play with Marcus back then. He decided to sign with the Bruins. He was the captain most recently until just a few hours ago of the Chicago Blackhawks. Future considerations, Nick is now long in the tooth, an older guy, a great locker room guy, much like his brother. This unites the brothers if we assume that Marcus is coming back, which we are not sure of. He's hurt. They've been very vague about when he might be back. But what we have seen now is the Wild in the past since Tuesday with the Michael McCarron trade, the Brink trade, and the Foligno trade. Age. We have seen them add a lot of bottom 6 guys potentially as they look to redo their fourth line and maybe their third line too. What are your thoughts on these trades?
Well, I mean, what's the old saying? There's strength in numbers. Well, Bill Guerin's getting a lot of guys. I'm not sure they're the impact guys that we have been maybe thinking about or speculating about for the past handful of weeks and maybe months. But my initial reactions, let's start with the Jiricek for Bobby Brink. I think we can all agree, you and myself, people watching, people who are going to listen to this after the show wraps up. But the Jiricek trade was awful. It like at the time I was very, I think optimistic about it because he former 6th overall pick. He has the size. He's 6'4". He's a right-handed defenseman. He moves pretty well. He can hold onto the puck pretty well. But as we saw, defensive awareness was not great for a guy that's 6'4" and 220 plus pounds. Plays like he's 5'4" and maybe 140 pounds. There's a lot there to be desired, and it wasn't coming along. It wasn't moving along. Cashing out like this is both. I mean. It's you choose however you want to view it because it's either a massive failure and you're barely salvaging something here, or you recognize, okay, that was tragic, that was terrible, but now you're spinning this as I think a mini win. I like Bobby Brink, former Minnetonka skipper, like you said. He's young, he's kind of got some grit to his game. He's undersized, so this is a little bit uncharacteristic, I think, of the direction that Bill Guerin typically goes. But he's all right in his defensive zone. I think this is going to be a guy where, with what he has in his capabilities, you stick him on that third line. He might surprise at times, but he's kind of like that grit. He's going to go out there. It feels like he's a guy that knows his role too. So at the age of, I want to say 24. It's not like it's a terrible. You're expecting the world from this guy. You're salvaging a little bit for a guy who has a little bit of a scoring touch. It's not great by any means, but you're going to stick him on that third line and let him do his thing. I actually am fine with this. I think he's on the final year of his current deal, so they will look to extend him, I'd imagine, for so he's on his final year of his deal. He's an RFA, so they'll work to get some sort of bridge deal after this season wraps up. I'm actually fine with this. This does a little bit more for reinforcements for that middle six, kind of bottom six area of the Wild's offensive cores. Moving to the Foligno trade, I know the sentiment and everybody wants to talk about, oh my God, Nick and Marcus playing together. We don't know about Marcus right now. We don't know really where his health is, but the good news is you didn't give up anything for him. It's just future considerations. The bad news is because of retention slots by the Chicago Blackhawks, they don't retain any salary whatsoever. So the Wild actually absorb the entire, what is it, $4.5 million cap hit. That's not ideal. That kind of sets up for either, if you're going to make a move to acquire somebody with a significant AAV, I'd imagine a Nico Sturm, maybe a Ryan Hartman is on their way out in an additional move later today, or that kind of wraps things up for the Wild in terms of notable moves. Will they look to acquire maybe another depth defenseman? I know we saw them do that yesterday with Jeff Petrie. Could they maybe do something else on the left-handed side of things in case a Jonas Brodin, a little insurance plan there? We know how fragile he can be health-wise. Do they want to go and just shore up more of that bottom six? I know they claimed Robbie Fabry the other day. Yeah. Now with the moves that we've seen, trading for Michael McCarron, trading for Bobby Brink, Nick Foligno, you're doing a lot to shore up that, that bottom half of the forward lineup. Mm-hmm. I know people are probably going to be left starving and asking, where is that top six guy? Where is that impact scorer or that center that we've been talking about, Vincent Trocheck? It may not come now, so we'll have to see how things shake and move. But I feel like if any more trades happen, you're going to see a notable outgoing from the Wild as well, just because of the cap space having to make some adjustments there.
On Nick Foligno's contract, okay, so he's in the last year. His cap hits are $4.5 million per. He would only, I would guess, unless I'm wrong here, the Wild would pick up the pro-rated portion of his cap hit that's left, correct?
That sounds right. So would it be more?
So like you wouldn't take up, like, and I'm not a cap guy, but I would guess that you would not be taking on 4.5. I would think that you would take on what's left of his cap hit, because the Blackhawks have paid him previously. So that might not be as much because he is going to be 38 in 2026-27 season and a UFA. So I'm guessing that the Wild doesn't take on a prohibitive hit. So that should clear up some space for them to continue to pursue players. The Brink trade is interesting. So I guess I didn't see this coming, but I don't mind it. Now, I'm still hoping that there is a significant deal left. As you just said, Trocheck remains still with the Rangers. There was a rumor, or I guess a report, Kevin Weeks, the former goaltender, who gets a lot of inside information, had a list of goaltenders who are on the market as of this morning, and it included Volstead. So he's clearly being mentioned. Mm-hmm. But the bottom six thing, and I'm sorry, what was that report?
Corey Perry to Tampa for a second rounder.
So he goes back to Tampa Bay for a second round pick. So again, we're seeing that the prices are very high. Yeah. Because Corey Perry is approximately my age. But when you look at what's going on here with the bottom six, let's talk about that. All right. Because we now have, I think you might be right. I think Nico Sturm might be traded. I think McCarron's going to play center on the fourth line. And I did see a projection. I don't know if it was from Faceoff Daily or what it was, but I saw a projection that McCarron would be on the right wing on the fourth line. Sturm would be the center. I don't think that's going to happen. But let's just go through the lines right now as currently constructed. Okay. Ideally, you're going to get somebody to play with Kaprizov and Zuccarello, and it's not Hartman. But for now, we don't have that. So let's leave that as a line. That's your first line, or it's close to a 1A, 1B. Marcus Johansson, we think he suffered an upper body injury, of course, a couple of nights ago. It looks like a concussion. He has a history of concussions. That's very concerning. So as of right now, that line, let's assume that JoJo is out for a week. I don't know. I mean, concussions are weird. You could be out for the rest of the season, unfortunately. But right now, assuming he's out, that line is Erikssonek, Boldy. Does Tarasenko bump up?
I think so. That the veteran, the scorer, the kind of the grace that we've seen him get through this season already, like even in the really bad start, they gave him the benefit of the doubt. I would imagine just for the sake that he's been who he is.
And he might contribute more. I don't know what the advanced metrics say, but I have a feeling they feel he contributes more than we see with our eyes.
I've heard them talk about how they feel his defensive game is better than maybe they expected it to be, and so that's where I imagine he slots into that second line. So he probably plays that JoJo role where it's a higher cap hit, but I think we just all have to kind of look at it and be like, are you going to contribute? Can you do something? Perfect. That's fine. We're going to let Erikssonek and Boldy kind of run the show. You're just there. And if you walk into a point or two here and there, that's just fine.
Okay. So let's go to the third line now.
Okay.
And let me see if I think I have the line chart from, I do. I saved it. I threw a lot away this morning, but I did not. Yep. And you have it too. Awesome.
I sure do. Yeah.
Okay. So the third line, a couple nights ago against Tampa Bay at the, Grand Casino Arena was Yurov, Tarasenko on the right, Trennan on the left. We now have Tarasenko bumping up to replace JoJo. Mm-hmm. Yurov remains the center.
Yes.
I think for now. Now, I think Hartman becomes the center if they do make a trade for an impact center later today. But anyway, Yurov remains the center for now. I think Trennan stays on the left wing. I don't think he's done a thing to get himself bumped off of that. But my guess is Brink now becomes the third line wing along with Trennan. Your thoughts on that?
Agreed. Bobby Brink will be on that third line. He should at least. First off, I do love that he's a right-handed shot too. This lineup doesn't have a lot of those, and now you can slot him in just on that natural right-handed side. It sounds like he is hustling as much as possible to actually make his debut with the team in Vegas tonight. So you're getting the reverse hangover situation at the end of that movie where there's driving back at 100 miles per hour to get to the wedding. He's going the opposite way, sprinting down the road, trying to get to Las Vegas.
He's probably thrilled.
I bet.
Got traded home?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, by the time he comes back, he might be able to celebrate with his hometown team after they potentially win the tourney this weekend.
And then we just got a comment from, I think it's Drow4, and I agree completely with this. If and when Marcus returns, I think McCarron would be the fourth line center between the Folignos if they move Sturm. I agree with that. I think for now, the fourth line is probably McCarron, Nick Foligno, and I don't know, I forget if he's a right or left shot. And then Fabry was on the left line fourth wing a couple nights ago. I think he stays there for now.
Left shot for Nick Foligno, by the way.
Left shot?
Left shot.
Left shot. Okay, so and Fabry played on the left wing, but long story short, I think as far as the third and fourth line goes, I think that the Tarasenko bumps up, so that line is left intact, from the sense that you don't have someone being scratched age, but I think Nico Sturm is vulnerable. I know that Vinnie Hinostroza is. My guess is he's out. My guess is he's out, right? Mm-hmm. And Fabry probably himself might be out eventually here. I think for tonight against the Golden Knights, he stays in. So McCarron and when he joins the team, I'm guessing it won't be tonight against the Golden Knights, Nick Foligno. So you have basically looked at your fourth line largely and said, we don't like it, and I have no problem with that. Now, I would like to see another trade. Like, if we end the day with this, it's a lot of shuffling. I don't know. I think it's fine. I don't know it, or I do know. It does not address your primary problem. But I do think your fourth line is better now, especially since I don't think Sturm has provided what they expected at all. I think he can kill penalties. He can win faceoffs, but he's a pretty underwhelming presence. So my guess is that they think McCarron and Nick Foligno, and if Marcus comes back, one, that's a very, very heavy fourth line, and two, that's a lot of character, and Bill Guerin loves character. I mean, that's McCarron, who's a presence, and the Folignos, are you kidding me? This might be as close to the Hanson brothers as the Wild's ever gotten if it's McCarron surrounded by Marcus and Nick Foligno.
You could probably do like this is like a TBS sitcom almost. You could just do the Minnesota Wild with a catchy intro, and it's like, hey, it's Nick Foligno and Michael McCarron. Marcus is pulling pranks. There's a lot of character. That being said, how many times in a deep playoff run, especially when you get to the conference finals, do you have the broadcast team and other, just notable people like talking heads on the intermission reports and whatnot, pretty much going and saying like, wow, look at this fourth line by, Florida. Look at what they've done this playoffs and really they play a big role. More than you'd think. And especially if you're going to make that deep run that we haven't seen the Wild really do, you need to be able to preserve the legs and just the energy of your top line guys. Matt Boldy is going to be playing a lot more minutes, and you're going to need him to stay healthy. Kirill Kaprizov is going to be playing even more minutes than what we've seen. Despite that 3 weeks off for the Olympics, you're going to need him to stay fresh throughout the playoffs. That's where the minutes have to be eaten by your bottom six. Doing this, sets the Wild up for that, but the problem is, are you doing enough up top to where you're going to get past that first round, maybe past that second round, to where you can actually experiment with that deeper into the playoffs? So this is a situation where like Bill Guerin is absolutely addressing a very important need, something that maybe kind of like flies under the radar because they have a glaring center problem right in their face. But if you don't address this and you get your center, but you don't do any of these other reinforcements, you might be left talking and, complaining in the third round, saying like, wow, Kaprizov looks gassed. Boldy looks absolutely worn out. I don't know. They can't play 25 plus minutes every single game, 3-4 series in a row. Yeah. So the character and whatnot is fine. Speed wise, I'm curious about what Nick Foligno is going to be able to do, especially in like a first or a second round matchup if they get a line mismatch against a McKinnon, because he is, I think, statistically one of the slowest players in the NHL. So what does a back check there look like? But I don't know. I can see both sides where people probably are still sitting here, arms open. I think, as am I, saying like, all right, where's the beef, Bill Guerin? Right. Like, granted, I guess this is the beef. Where's the toppings? Where's the flash?
It's a lot of depth.
It is, and depth is,
and Petrie as well.
Yeah, that's right, Petrie. You think about the miniature like unofficial war that the Wild fan base had with Anson Carter a couple years ago, where he said, "Yeah, this team is good, but they just don't have the depth." This is the depth that makes a playoff team special. But what also makes a playoff team special is typically a number one center who can control that middle of the ice. The Wild still vacate that opportunity. So, as we're getting more near and near. Let's say we're done, because I know we've seen some people report that, like Frank Saravelli, for instance, is saying that the Wild are supposedly done for the day before the deadline. If this is it, and you're relying now on a Ryan Hartman, Eric Sinek, Danil Yurov, Sturm / McCarron center group, how confident are you heading into the playoffs?
Boy, with what you're going to face, I think we talked about this on our show yesterday. I'm pretty confident that you'll at least match up with Dallas. With the Avs, I'm not confident.
Right.
It's so hard. And the Wild had some talent, no question. And they now have more depth, which is great. But at the end of the day, do I think that your first line, with the potential of Hartman being there, and as you said, Ryan Hartman runs hot and cold. If you could harness the Ryan Hartman that we saw after I think it was the 10 game turned into like 8 game suspension last year, and he came in and he was fantastic. He started on the fourth line in the playoffs, and then he got promoted because he was playing so well. If you could harness that, I would say, oh, okay, great, but you can't. So I'm not extremely confident. I'm not extremely, and look, at the other question that I have is, and there's a lot of teams, this is not going to be a unique thing from a fan base. Can Gustafsson stand on his head? Can he do it for 2 games? Can he do it for 3 games? And I mean win the game. And you score 2 goals and you win. That's a huge ask. I get it. But that's also something that I feel like happens in playoffs for teams that advance. If you get Trocheck, I feel really good. I feel really, really good. Not because he is a clear-cut Nathan McKinnon equivalent, but the dude can win faceoffs. He can kill penalties. He can play minutes. He just brings a lot. But if they are indeed done, I think their depth has been improved. Do I think they've maximized the opportunity? No. Do I think they are then going to try to make a massive trade this offseason for a guy like Brady Tkachuk or throw their hat in the ring for Austin Matthews, who it sounds like more and more is going to want out of Toronto? Yeah, but those trades are hard to make, and there's a lot of teams involved, and there is no guarantee that just because you kept Volstead or you're off, that a team is going to say, oh, absolutely, here is Brady. So
Yeah.
I just see an opportunity here to capitalize, and I sort of like what they're doing as far as the depth goes, but I also feel like, boy, if you pull a punch right now, there's going to be a lot of question marks about, did you pass up an opportunity? And if you go out in the first round or second round, does that influence Quinn Hughes? And I mean, Quinn Hughes seems to love it here. I get that. But one, he just got done playing with his brother Jack at the Olympics, and it's just crystal clear to me that if anything, that emboldened those two to say, we want to be teammates. The Wild doesn't get Jack, who's signed. Is Quinn Hughes going to say, you know what, no matter what, I don't care. I am signing here. A lot of things here. This is a great opportunity. And the Quinn Hughes trade, which was the Wild's biggest trade, one of the biggest trades, if not the biggest in franchise history, is fantastic. But I also will have some questions. I'll also have some questions about, did you not make a trade because you felt that it was too much and therefore lose a chance at a cup? Unless you're saying we can't beat the Avs, and if that's the case, you shouldn't be playing, and I can't imagine Bill Guerin saying that.
Real quick, a little bit of somewhat breaking news here, not necessarily a trade getting done, but just news about trades. Before I get to that, though, we have over 1,000 people hanging out with us here on this Friday near noontime, just a couple hours before the NHL trade deadline. If you're just finding us for the first time, welcome in. This is Judd's Hockey Show, wild hockey all year round. We talk it, we discuss it, we break it down, we rant, we rave, all that good stuff. And this is a somewhat new, about a month and a half now, of a brand new, fresh YouTube channel that we rebranded, still under the Score North Network. If you're just finding us for the first time, maybe you've been with us all along and you're just watching on YouTube here, make sure to click that like button, subscribe button. Stay tuned in as we finish out the rest of the trade deadline, heading into the playoffs, hoping for that deep run and Stanley Cup for the Minnesota Wild. David Pagnotta, though, reporting 2 minutes ago, all indications that the Minnesota Wild are out on Vincent Trocheck. Focus is shifting elsewhere for the New York Rangers. So, Wild out on Vincent Trocheck, according to David Pagnotta. Would this mean, though, that they are going back to the goodwill they potentially got with Nashville, looking at the center depth there, paying a second-round pick for Michael McCarron? They have Ryan O'Reilly. They have Steven Stamkos. They have Eric Haula.
Marchessault also supposedly being shopped. And I don't know what you think of him at this point in his career. If they're out on Trocheck because the price was too high, that's one thing. If they're done completely and that was their goal, and now that they've said, okay, we couldn't get him, I'm disappointed.
I agree. I would imagine that the price was just too high.
And how can O'Reilly, if you go, and I know, okay, he's got no protection from being traded, but the Preds, he has said, I want to be there, despite the fact, by the way, the Preds have spent the past 2 days trading character players. Like, the Preds are telling Stamkos and Arwar we're out, and they're like, oh, I want to stay here. It's like, why do you want to stay here? The team is basically saying, and by the way, they're smart. They're saying, we're done. We're out. They're probably going to miss the playoffs now. If you're Ryan O'Reilly and Bill Guerin, who's been around forever, calls you up, and he just got Nick Foligno to go with Marcus, to go with your buddy McCarron. Like, we're talking about bordering on an old-timers team here, trying to win right now. How can O'Reilly say no? It's like, Ryan, we're putting a band together here, and you can be the lead singer. And by the way, it's an old farts band. How can Ryan O'Reilly say no?
And the Nashville Predators have one more slot, like retained salary slot as well. So any deal that they do, if the Wild were to pay up for a guy like a Ryan O'Reilly, or if Steven Stamkos were to waive that no move clause, obviously he's got the $8 million cap hit for this season, and then the two following after this. Ryan O'Reilly with a 4.5 next season as well. they could, if the price is good enough, or the goodwill, like I said, for the McCarron second round pick. And granted, now that we've actually seen more deals, maybe that was a fair price after all.
Yeah,
That could be up to 50% retained and actually help the Wild out here. So if they were to make a move right now for one of those, I guess, 4 guys that you said, because Marchessault also is in that conversation, Stamkos, Marchessault, O'Reilly, Holla, rank them in your mind and keep in mind the cap hit wise, because you're probably going to have to move out a Ryan Hartman if it's a Stamkos, which I'm all right.
I'll be okay with that.
I think I can live with that. Don't get me wrong. But
I'll be okay with that.
But rank those 4.
Okay, so if I was to rank them just on that, and let's say Hartman was going to be traded, let's say he was going to go to the Preds, I would go Stamkos, O'Reilly, Marchessault.
Oh, Stamkos is actually your number 1.
Stamkos is my one. But realistically, I'm going O'Reilly. I mean, Stamkos is, I mean, this guy, and people thought he was done at the beginning of the season. I don't think he had a great year I think it was his first year with the Preds last year. Clearly, it was a huge transition. But he's a 30-goal guy again now. So if I could get him, I'd get him in a heartbeat. That being said, realistically, for what the price point would probably be, just as far as the trade itself, I think O'Reilly is your best shot.
Right,
and I would have no complaint with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Marchessault, I personally don't want. He would be my least desirable personally. I would probably rather take Eric Hall over him, but it's a massive gap in my mind between O'Reilly and Stamkos to those two. Question in the chat here, and just because I want to address this one, maybe this is a simple one for you too. David Verda asks, would you trade Eriksson Ek for some for a better center? I would not, personally. Like, if you told it, we would have to have one of the best centers coming back to the Minnesota Wild here. But if you move him for, in the realm of what we're talking about right now, a Vincent Trocheck, a Steven Stamkos, whatever, one, he's too important to that second line and how defensively they play this game. He's one of the more key face-off takers for this team who plays significant time on ice. He's great on the penalty kill. You can move off of him. I wouldn't even entertain many conversations unless you're getting almost a generational type of center. But I don't even think that is a possibility today. Trade
deadline, you cannot trade a guy. You can't remove him from the locker room right now. He's way too important.
Right.
Like if you're talking about Austin Matthews in the offseason and the Leafs are like, we've got to have Eriksson Ek. First of all, I don't know that the Wild would include him then, but that would be a discussion for June, if you're ever going to have it.
Breaking news, Michael Russo of The Athletic is hearing that the Wild have traded Vinnie Hinostroza to the Florida Panthers for future considerations. So we are moving out, if I can pull up.
We are dealing in the depths of the roster transactions here.
It almost feels like money laundering in a sense. Like, it's kind of these like smaller little deals where they're moving on.
It's the hockey mafia, small time.
Vinnie Hinostroza carrying a $775,000 cap hit. Granted, he was a UFA after this season. This is a guy they claimed off waivers, so this is a moment of silence for his addition to the Minnesota Wild here for the past 2 seasons now, Vinnie Hinostroza. But at the same time, I don't think that moves the needle too much.
No, he was going to be probably demoted or just scratched.
Yeah. And it is the weird thing of, I think after the trade deadline, maybe it was actually last night, there are unlimited roster spots for NHL teams, considering the fact that they just need to be cap compliant. So you could have what is it?
Yeah.
Like 80, or like you could have 1 million players at, $5 or, $1 million cap hit. They could all be on your roster and just scratched, but so getting roster compliant isn't as important by any means as just getting cap compliant for the Wild today. So that's more of a minor move, probably just to free up close to $1 million.
Yeah, and just as far as that point about being cap compliant, we should talk about the fact that this is going to be the first year now where you have to be cap compliant throughout the playoffs. So the old Golden Knights trick of, oh, Mark Stone's hurt and he's not going to be back till game 1 of the playoffs, in which case his cap won't count because we don't have to be cap compliant. That is changing now. But my understanding is what you just said is correct, which is you have to be cap compliant with who's on the ice. So like you can get players, you can be over the cap, I believe, as far as the game goes, but you just can't have to be compliant with what's on the ice. So it doesn't mean that you can't make trades. It means that you will have to think about who is going to be scratched. Are you going to scratch a good player for a playoff game because he does not fit in? So that's my understanding there. But it is interesting when you see so the Wild has now made what in the past 2 days 2 trades with the Panthers. Hinostroza going to Florida, right? And then they got Jeff Petrie from the Panthers yesterday. They've made a trade with Nashville. I'm just trying to go through who else has what from those teams that these might open up a bigger conversation as the deadline nears here as far as potentially. Now we know that Florida, I think, has decided to bail. They're not going to make the playoffs. It's actually sort of genius because you win a couple of cups and then it like takes its toll. And then instead of being like, we're going to fight to get in the playoffs, the team is like, screw it. But then we're going to get a decent draft pick. So also, here's a question for you. Do you have available in front of you, Mr. AJ, what the Wild has as far as draft picks left for the coming years? Because in any O'Reilly trade, I'm sure that you would have to deal a first round pick. And we've been talking, I think, about in the Trocheck proposal, we talked about a 2027 first, but put together a potential draft pick incentivized trade for O'Reilly that the Wild could make, keeping in mind they have traded a ton of picks already.
I would say so. Keep in mind for what they have in their pockets here. They do not have a second round pick for the upcoming 3 drafts. So 2026, 27, 28 are all gone second round. They also do not have the 2026 first round pick that was included with the Quinn Hughes trade earlier this season, sending, a handful of other guys for arguably the best defenseman now in the NHL. I think everybody's fine with that. They do have basically everything else, though. So they have 2027 and 2028 first-round picks. They've got 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounds. Actually, they don't have their 7th because that was actually sent. So this is not fully updated, but they do have an additional Sharks 5th-round pick, but that doesn't really matter. When it comes to Ryan O'Reilly, I'm going to say 2027 first-round pick. If they need to go off their like respect thing with him and maybe burn a bridge there, throw in your 3rd this year, and then you throw in a prospect, whether that's Charlie Stramel, whether that's Hunter Haight, or if they want a defenseman, Carson Lambos or David.
That's what I was going to say. So a first round draft pick, a good prospect, and just for context too here. So going back to the ill-fated Jurecek trade with Columbus. The Wild traded away their 1st and 25, which is gone, has been used.
Yep.
Their 3rd and 26, according to what I found. Their 4th and 26, so this draft, your 3rd and 4th round picks, according to what I looked at, are gone. And then your 2nd and 27.
That was I want to say a Nashville 3rd round pick that they moved off. It wasn't one that they owned.
Gotcha. So could you throw that back to Nashville, your 1st round pick, and... well, probably spot check at this point.
It really depends on what they want. Like if they want to forward, I don't know if the Wild are in any place to. Well, granted, I guess now do we know after the conversations yesterday, just with the pending free agency, like college free agency for Charlie Stramel, maybe he's not even an option to be moved right now because anywhere he goes, if he doesn't feel like the organization is that great or whatnot, he might just say, I'll just sign wherever I want to. So maybe we have to take him out of the conversations entirely. Maybe it's a Hunter Haight instead. Maybe it's a Adam Banak who is undersized but had a decent World Junior Championships. But Carson Lambos, David Spacek are probably the better 2 options there. I'm trying to think like who else. Rasmus Kumpalainen, the Finnish center. He's 20 years old.
Because I'm thinking for O'Reilly, if I'm the Predators, I would want one 1st round pick at least. I'd probably want another high draft pick, and I would want a prospect. That's a pretty good haul right there. Now I know that the trades have been like, that the sellers have been getting a ton. So that might not be completely enough, but I think that gives you the framework of a potential trade. And yeah, if you are joining us now, we appreciate all of you watching Judd's Hockey Show. If you are just joining us, here's what we have today.
Yep.
This morning, Bobby Brink traded the winger from the Flyers to the Wild. David Jiricek, the defenseman, who is a big disappointment, goes to the Flyers. Brink on his way to Vegas, expected to make his debut tonight with the Wild. My guess is he's playing on the third line. That also weaves in Vinnie Hinostroza has been traded to the Florida Panthers. He was the fourth line right wing on Tuesday against Tampa. He has gone to Florida. Nick Foligno, Marcus's brother, acquired by the Wild from the Blackhawks. Nick was the captain there. For future considerations, and it sounds like the reports I just saw said he probably will meet the Wild in Colorado, and he will debut on Sunday afternoon against the Avs. Keep in mind, Marcus is out. We do not know when he is back. Marcus Johansson is out. We do not know when he is back, so there is a good chance that Tarasenko goes up and plays on the second line for the short term, at least, with Jules Eriksson and Boldy. Do you think by the end of today, well, two-pronged question. One, do you believe that the Wild is done? And two, do you think if they're not done by the end of the day, that Jesper Wallstedt is still on this roster?
I don't think they're done. I know the rumors and like the talking heads have thrown Wallstedt in. I just feel like they're going to hold on to him at least through the rest of the season into the summer. And if they want to move him, then it's for a bigger deal. I think you move him for a guy like Robert Thomas, and that's about it right now. Unless there's a surprise name in a mystery box and a behind a curtain that we haven't heard about that just comes out of nowhere, then by all means, maybe I can get floored and get up to that. But I think the price on a Robert Thomas is too high, especially in division. They don't have the weapons to go out and make that deal right now. So I think Wallstedt remains on the roster. I don't think they're done though. I think Nashville, you circle back for Ryan O'Reilly, the other guy, and are we going to see a hat trick of deals with the Panthers? I still am going to throw out this guy, Evan Rodriguez. He's on a $3 million cap hit into through next year too.
Florida.
And if they're punting, like that's another. Granted, it's not a top six guy by any means, but I think it's a middle six. And on this team, frankly, he goes up into that top six. He can play the wing if needed, but when he's in a situation, he's able to thrive. I don't think they're done. I don't think they're done by any means.
I just saw a tweet here too. I guess the talking heads, and I don't know if this is on TSN, Sportsnet, or ESPN, their coverage, but lots of chatter as of late about Nazem Kadri. Now, I don't love that one.
I don't either.
But he's been through the playoffs. He won a cup in Colorado. He was rumored at one point to probably be going from the Flames back to the Avs. They couldn't make that work, and Colorado acquired Nick Waugh from Toronto, so I think that they're done. Curious about Dallas. But Kadri is, as much as we might not love it, it is an option. But I think the Wild's on his no trade, so he would need to waive that portion. ROR, keep in mind, does not have a no trade. The Predators have just said they'll be respectful of what he wants.
That's my holdup with Kadri. Besides the fact that he's 35, besides the fact that after this year he's got three more years at a $7 million AAV. I thought that he had already stated, or it was found out, that the Wild are just not a team he wants to go to. So,
but if you're going there to be compete for a few months, who gives a crap? Like he's in Calgary.
Yeah, but he's got 3 more years. Like he would come here and then
I'd be happy.
Is the expectation that they're just gonna move him in the offseason?
Yeah, I don't know. It just, I mean, he's his own dude, so perhaps he just, I don't know. I also this again, this whole thing gets me going. No trade clauses. They're given to far too many people in this league. I understand if you are an upper echelon star, but just for a point of reference, I think the NBA has like 5 of them. I think there's like 5 guys with protection, and those guys get traded constantly. And guess what? It's great fun. I'm sick of these okay players. And I know they have the right to squash the deal. Well, why do they have that right? Why are we giving that out? Are you good enough to have no trade protection? I mean, this goes back to when, and I like the guy a lot, but I mean, Bill Guerin gave, no trade protection to everyone and their cousin, and his reasoning was, well, they like it here, and that's awesome, but this is the National Freaking Hockey League. It's all about movement. If you want to play a pro sport, guess what? Don't tell me about, well, my family enjoys it here. You're playing a pro sport. You're making millions of dollars. Just drives me crazy. Sorry. That's a complete aside.
Michael Russo also saying that at this moment, he is not expecting anything else from the Wild, but obviously we still have a little over 2 hours until that deadline. If that's it, I'm not that confident that you're getting out of the first 2 rounds.
Oh, I agree completely. Completely.
Don't get me wrong. You still could rely on the power of friendship and everything, and that has trounced multiple.
Is this to get Jack
franchise.
Hughes? Is this to make a run at Jack Hughes? And again, I'm skeptical of all of this. Wait for July. Like we did this last year. Wait for July.
Yeah.
And then July came, and guess what? It was a big old fart.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, that's all it was. And look, the Quinn Hughes trade is great, but if you're trying to make promises, you can't make promises. And I know Colorado's exceptional. I know they're a really good team, but you've got a window here, and it's wide open. Like every year, you're going to have really good teams or one really good team, and why don't you make yourself that team? And I feel like if you don't get a center, and I'm not saying Gretzky, but if you don't get a center, it just feels to me like what are you going to do? Go beat teams up right now? That fourth line, you're going to beat teams up? Like, are you going to, like, we've been down this path. I like this fourth line more, but we went down this path last year.
Right.
Now that was Rossi at center, fourth line, but, Justin Brazeau, who, by the way, it turns out can score, but, Justin Brazeau and Trennan, and they played hard. They played really hard, and it got you to 6 games against the Golden Knights, and then what drives me crazy is we all celebrated it. Well, it was closer than the past years. Well, guess what? The history books say you were eliminated in the first round. And you got Quinn Hughes. And that's the other thing. You don't know how long you are going to have him. And by the way, if he doesn't sign, and we said the same thing about Kaprizov, it worked out. So hopefully it's the exact same thing. But if he doesn't sign it, but if he's like, I'm going to explore my options. At some point in time, you might have to trade him next year. So I see a window here. And, I understand if the Trocheck price got out of hand. I don't think that gets you off the hook, though, as far as saying, okay, we just won't do a thing or we won't try. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it.
I think we're aligned in that view. I can see, and maybe, we see how this plays out, and then we get to the summer and they make this fantastic move, and that's, maybe it's for a Brady Tkachuk, who we know is very close to the Hughes family and is friends with them, or it's for a Jack Hughes, and that cements like, oh, he's going to extend here and all this stuff. But that is months down the road. That is the unknown. What we know right now is that this team is basically a center away from being legit Stanley Cup contenders / I mean, they're a contender right now. I shouldn't say that, but favorites to win the whole damn thing. To just sit on the hands and say, well, we're going to wait for the summer because that's when we can really strike. I get that the market's kind of crazy right now. As much as we were told it was a buyer's market 72 hours ago, and then that overnight flipped on its head, and all of a sudden, crazy to think, like you were saying yesterday, crazy to think that once again it is a seller's market again and again and again. Yeah. You have the pieces in place, and I really think Steven Stamkos or Ryan O'Reilly is what gets you over the hump, and what has us sitting here at 205, 210, 230, whatever time we get, like all the deals are now pushed through, saying this team is set up perfectly to go make that deep run for the Stanley Cup. They can take on Dallas. They can take on Colorado. They can take on whatever team they would then face in the Western Conference Finals. And then because now Corey Perry is on the Tampa Bay Lightning, they can take on the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Stanley Cup, where they would then beat them. Like, they're that far away. And it's I don't know. I'm not going to say silly to me to not, because there's a lot of intricacies and whatnot that go into it, but it just feels like you're just waiting around for nothing. And this is the moment that is passing by that Bill Guerin has talked about with the Quinn Hughes trade and some other things. Seize it. Make that trade. Solidify that you are confident in this team, and don't rely on.
He is confident.
He is. That's the problem.
That might be the problem. I saw a comment go by a little while ago from Caden Smith, who said, Judd, calm down. They've got Kaprizov, Boldy, and Hughes, and those three can carry the team. And they are 3 superstars. But Caden, here's my problem. They aren't centers. And unless you trust Ryan Hartman a lot more, thanks, H. Caden says, Judd, we've got Kirill, Boldy, and Quinn. I think you're underestimating how far these three can carry the team in the playoffs. But they're not centers. And the reality is this, unless you trust Hartman a lot more than I do, we're talking about faceoffs, which are imperative, which, by the way, the Wild is bad at. And don't tell me, please do not try to say, well, they picked up McCarron, because you told me the same thing with Sturm last offseason. They got Sturm. He's going to win every single faceoff. Well, he doesn't play enough. It doesn't matter. He's a fourth liner. And McCarron, God bless him, is almost certainly the same. A first liner that can win faceoffs, that can drive play. I mean, Ryan Hartman doesn't really drive play. A first line, or a center here, I should say, you might consider him a second line guy, but a guy that can drive play, win faceoffs. I think to get through the Stanley Cup playoffs, you need that. And so am I trying to denigrate Boldy, Hughes, and Kaprizov? Absolutely not. They're fantastic. And I think they will make an enormous difference. I especially think Quinn Hughes will, since this will be his first time in the postseason with the Wild. That's awesome. But we're talking about trying to get past Colorado. And just to keep this in mind too, you're getting past potentially, if you get past Dallas, we're talking Colorado potentially in the second round, correct?
Correct.
So, okay, then you got to win 2 more rounds. So this is not to say that those 3 players are not great, and this is not to say that they will not contribute mightily. This is to say I don't know that you have enough of the ingredients to get to where you want to go. And I'm sorry, and I know that the Avs are great, and yes, James is right. Centers win cups. The Avs are great, but if the Wild only gets past the first round, are we going to hold a parade? Like, they haven't done it since 15, but are we going to then hold a parade? Like, are we going to shut down St. Paul, West 7th Street, perhaps 94, and hold a parade because those 3 superstar players got you past the first round? Like, is that where we're at right now? Because if that's the case, somebody's got to tell me that. Because I ain't holding the parade for that. Like, you've gotten past, and I know it's been a long time, but you've gotten past the first round before. You have not been to the Western Conference Finals, as I hit my mic, since 2003. So this is where I am not saying this is not a good team. I think they're very good. I think they are, as AJ said, they're a contender for sure. Mm-hmm. But do I think that they can get to where they need to go with pivots of Ryan Hartman, Joel Eriksson-Ek, Urov, and McCarron? No, I don't.
It just feels like you're banking on the stars aligning too much. And not that they can't, because they certainly can. And we've seen teams do that before. Who was it? The Kings that were like the 8th seed coming into the playoffs. I think their first time winning the cup back in like the 2010s, where they were the 8th seed. They went to game 7, they won. They went to game 7, they won. They just kept defying the odds and kept like making this run, and it was fantastic. You're doing that here, I think, with the Wild. Not that they're not a contender, not that they can't be competitive as is, but you're banking on Ryan Hartman looking like the Ryan Hartman we saw in the playoffs last season. You're banking on, also while that happening, Philip Gustafsson being able to stand on his head and be able to take this workload for a full playoff stint, playing at a certain high level. You're banking on people staying healthy, because if a Quinn Hughes goes down, if a Kirill Kaprizov or Matt Boldy goes down, then it's over. Throw in the towel. You're banking on so many things to just kind of align. I would rather take some of those stars off the table and just force, like, okay, I have a better center now. I don't have to worry about defensive zone faceoffs, because that's another thing too. You're banking on you're going to win some of these important defensive zone faceoffs against teams that are going to be lethal and take advantage of that. So there's just a lot here. But if this is it, for the time being, there is not going to be a shortage of opinions and emotions by the fan base.
All right, so here is our plan. We're going to take a break. Age is actually going to go record some Thor Talks Purple with him. We are going to, short of a enormous trade, in which case we will break in again. Yes. But short of that, we are going to return at 1:45 p.m. Central Time. The deadline is 2 o'clock Central, 3 Eastern. We are then going to go from 1:45 till 3 o'clock Central, because trades can actually be made, be put into the queue, but the National Hockey League then sorts through them. So it wouldn't be astounding if trades were also coming out as late as, let's say, 2:30 or so. So that's our plan. Appreciate all of you who have joined us. As AJ said earlier, we not only appreciate that, but please like and subscribe and do all of that good stuff for our new channel, which is over 3,000 subs. We really want to keep growing the Judd's Hockey channel here. The new channel on YouTube. We will return at 1:45 with any additional news. And if there is no news, we will have certainly some opinions. At some point in time, hopefully once the Matamidi game is done as well, Jessie Pierce will join us to discuss her opinions as well. But until then, thank you again. He's AJ, I'm Judd. We'll see you shortly.